The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast ServiceNow series. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Holger Brink. Holger is the Technical Director and Chief ServiceNow Architect for NetImpact Strategies. Holger, welcome to the show.
Thank you, JP. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. So, Holger, let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests.
Absolutely.
Could you give us an overview of your background in technology and what your journey has been from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today as the Chief ServiceNow Architect for NetImpact Strategies?
I actually started out in the finance area. That's where I got my degree. But in one of my very first positions I had, I helped with the introduction of new systems to support the finance function within the company. And then actually found that I was more interested in working with the IT side of things than with the finance side of things. So I made a switch over. I got my master's degree and then moved into the technology area. And then joined a company that actually is one of the global elite partners of ServiceNow. That was roughly 2010, so fairly early in the days of ServiceNow. And that's really where I got into ServiceNow in a big way. Then essentially focusing on nothing but ServiceNow implementations. And that's one of the things that I found very interesting is moving from clients to clients, because you learn from the different requirements that clients bring to the table, how to solution and how to support these requirements. Then as part of that, I really took advantage of any time the company sponsored training and certifications. And so I ended up amassing something like, I think, a dozen different implementer certifications. And I do want to just preface that with, I don't believe that just because you have a certification doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to do things better than anybody else, or that if you don't have a certification that you can't do certain things. But I do believe that at least it shows an investment. And of course, companies that we work with, they have to have something to validate. And that's the function of certifications in my mind. And then 2 years ago, I decided to join NetImpact. NetImpact, and I know we'll talk a little bit more detail about the company, but NetImpact is focused on the public sector. And one of the things that attracted me to NetImpact at the time was I had discussions early on about their support for me to become a certified master architect, which is a fairly small number of people that get into the program and that make it through their program. And I decided to move forward with NetImpact.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the background. So obviously been in the ServiceNow community for a number of years now, and you referenced your transition into NetImpact Strategies. We're going to talk about your role in a bit more detail in a moment, but for the benefit of the audience, tell us all about NetImpact Strategies, who you are, what you do, mission of the business.
Yeah, so NetImpact Strategies is different in many ways from the company I came from, the global elite service partner, in that it's a smaller company, and secondly, it is fully dedicated to supporting public sector agencies. And the other things that, in my mind, make NetImpact stand out, in addition to the focus on employees and agencies that they support, is they're very focused on innovation. That attracted me very early on. NetImpact is, I believe, the largest independent software vendor on the ServiceNow App Store. We currently have 8 that are published, and some of that technology that we've actually developed has been patented. And to me, that is exciting from an architect perspective, because when you build applications for reuse and for implementation in the store, you have some considerations that are a little different than when you just develop functionality, even at what we call scoped app in ServiceNow, for a custom installation, in that you have to make sure that the App Store application will run in multiple client environments. You have to make sure that you don't step on anything that might be installed or used for other purposes at the client. And then there's also some other best practices that you just simply learn along the way. So there's a lot of additional learning, and I just find it exciting to just expand in those areas. So one thing I'd like to add to the development of store apps by NetImpact is the way that we discover these capabilities or requirements. And that is typically because we are focused on the public sector and federal agencies, we become intimately familiar with some of the requirements. And as we identify some of these repeating mission requirements, we've determined that a great way to build consistency and quality of service is actually building some of these into ServiceNow store apps. So rather than reinventing the wheel every time we have the same kind of requirement, like cyber incident reporting or organizational change management as some of the examples, but also capabilities that help companies achieve the authorization to operate. This is a key function within government agencies since they are in a highly secure environment. We build these capabilities into an application that we can then deploy either as a product or as part of one of our service contracts. And so it's really focusing on the things we understand best around how these agencies operate and what their requirements are.
You talked in your introduction about becoming a CSM, which is you're in a very small category there. Can you give us some insight into what your role entails, the day-to-day responsibilities, how you're working with the broader ServiceNow team, and how that translates into conversations with the end customers?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the exciting things about my role at NetImpact, and that is supporting both delivery at our agencies as well as working on developing products that we then bring to the store. And I think those two pieces fit really well together because with my work with agencies such as the Indian Health Services, Homeland Security, the National Credit Union Administration, and other agencies, that's where I learn about what's important to these agencies. And that knowledge then goes into the development of our products that we then bring to the store. And vice versa, the experience I gain in developing applications on the store or for the store also exposed me to some of the best practices that ServiceNow has developed over the years and that go into certification for one of these store apps that then help me deliver better service really to our agencies that we support. So I really think they really go hand in hand, and I love the fact that my role spans both. Now, in addition to developing products and supporting our clients, I also get involved in some of the bidding, and that's actually one of the things that I again find very interesting, having come from a commercial sector where things are really based on return on investment and more of a financial aspect. You learn very quickly, that the bidding process and the whole contracting process for federal agencies, is very transparent, but it also tends to be more focused on mission achievement rather than return on investment calculations. And obviously cost is important, but what's really key is that how do we support the agency in its achievement of its mission? And I find that very interesting and exciting to operate in that space. But obviously it was interesting to see the commercial side as well, but it's just fairly different. It took me some getting used to that difference in both the pre-sales aspect, which I've also was involved in the commercial sector, as well as that whole delivery and support process within the federal agencies. And so my role really supports everything from start to finish, the pre-sales on the delivery side, and then also delivering to those contracts and supporting those clients. And then on the product side, taking some of that knowledge from that support and identifying new product ideas. And then, in fact, working with developers to create applications that support these requirements.
Prior to joining NetImpact Strategies, you obviously had considerable experience in the private commercial sector. Making the transition into NetImpact Strategies has put the focus on the public sector, government agencies, federal space. What were some of the things that you noticed or learned about making that transition? And speaking to an audience of ServiceNow professionals who are in the commercial sector, what have you enjoyed about switching your focus to a different industry vertical? What could you tell people who are in this space, who are maybe not considered working with the government bodies, and why it's an attractive space, as we know it is, given what we know about the opportunity?
Yeah, so I mean, I did enjoy certainly working in the commercial space as well, but my transition was somewhat eased because some of the work I was involved in was supporting places like New York City, supported a very large contract there for ServiceNow. And even though that's not a federal agency, some of the similar kind of things apply around the bidding process, the transparency and so on. But moving into that federal space, so one, it's just simply that learning and how everything from contract vehicles to, are you a small business? Is it a full and open contract? Just that learning some of those different paradigms that you move within a federal space. But then, like I said, also that focus on the mission, right? So it's really a key component of everything we do is understanding how ServiceNow, in ServiceNow, by the way, it's a great product, right? And I think one of the things that I also see with federal agencies is that focus on mission has driven the recognition among many agencies how ServiceNow is much broader, of course, than the ticketing platform that some people may still think of ServiceNow as. So what I see actually is a maybe even broader adoption of ServiceNow as a platform within agencies than many of the commercial accounts I've worked with. And I think that mission focus is, I think you get an indication of everyone that works on these federal contracts, whether it's the government employees or the contractors that support them. And it's also more of a long-term strategic view because they want to make sure that they get benefit out of the platform in the long range. Now, some of the things, of course, that we learn on the ServiceNow platform apply both ways, both the commercial and the federal sector. So things like making sure that the platform is sustainable and that you stay within best practice in ServiceNow so you can continue to upgrade. All those still stay the same, but then there's the added, I don't want to say complexity, but you've got to achieve an authorization to operate, so an ATO, as it's called, when you roll out new functionality. ServiceNow does support that by having their own FedRAMP installations. And so that certainly makes it easy to achieve that ATO, but it's still something that you have to go through as you implement. And then in general, some of the initiatives that happen within the government, the zero trust and so on, which have really become a very big focus for all of implementations across the board. So there's definitely a lot of learning from my perspective, but it's also that a slightly different perspective on why ServiceNow and how ServiceNow can support the enterprise.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
So Holger, given your role obviously at the very senior level of ServiceNow, you're shaping the strategy of that department, but you're also working in conjunction with the other divisions of NetImpact Strategies, mainly AI, cyber, and then cloud infrastructure. Can you give us a little bit of insight into how these departments work together to support a customer, what it's like from a communication standpoint, and just how it helps make NetImpact a more of an effective partner?
Absolutely. So yeah, there are definitely different areas of focus within NetImpact. ServiceNow is our largest, just to put that out there. But we also have Microsoft. So we are a Microsoft partner as well, and it's very collaborative. In fact, just this morning I came off a call with developers that also included our vice president of innovations that works on the Microsoft product suite. And then also AWS is another area. In fact, I've gotten my AWS certifications last year as well. And this is actually, again, one of the things that makes NetImpact in my mind, employer of choice, because they really support that idea of getting certifications and getting the employees certified. In fact, we have a Earn That Cert program that drives some of these things. I think more excitingly, even we've implemented a boot camp for architects that tries to take senior developers and move them into architect roles, not just for ServiceNow, but also for some of the other areas. So that's what we look at. What are the criteria and the capabilities that make an architect successful? So from a people and career building perspective, right, a lot of collaboration between the different departments. Of course, I work with the marketing area in terms of rolling out product and also identifying opportunities, working with the other platform partners like AWS and Microsoft. There's certainly things that we've looked at also from a AI perspective, leveraging the Microsoft Azure AI within the ServiceNow platform, and we're actually in the process of working through those. Another key area that we focused on is site reliability engineering. So that's one of I think Google started that idea of essentially building out a set of best practices, a framework in how to build reliable operations into IT. So it's leveraging some of the concepts from ITIL and from CMMI. And we've gotten really focused on getting that up and running. And at this point in time, again, I think we're one of the largest enterprises with site reliability engineering certifications in the industry. And by the way, I've also gone through that program because I think it is just important to understand not just ServiceNow, but some of the other trends within the industry that we then support. So we're also working currently on products that go across platforms. We're looking at things like technical debt. How can we help enterprises, especially, of course, the federal government, manage the technical debt, not just within the ServiceNow platform, but also on the Microsoft side, the AWS side. So I think this is, again, one of the things that NetImpact being a slightly smaller company, that collaboration is much, much stronger, right? You really get a view of not just ServiceNow, which I'm primarily focused on, but many of the other areas that the company's investing in.
That segues nicely into where I wanted to finish our conversation, which is looking ahead, the near-term roadmap for NetImpact Strategies. Obviously, we want to focus on your group, the ServiceNow org, because it's doing incredible work and there's such a tremendous opportunity for ServiceNow within the public sector. So when you look at the current customer base, the opportunity for growth, whether it be addition of new customers or bringing more of the ServiceNow modules into existing customers, what are you excited about? What are you looking to accomplish in the next 1 to 2 years? And when we have you back on the show, what are you hoping to say you will have accomplished?
One of the areas that I'm really excited about that I've been very involved in is what we call platform first. And I'll make sure I position that properly. What we're trying to do is leverage all this wonderful knowledge and the capabilities that we developed over the years and make that more accessible to our resources at large. So it could be something as simple as a template for presentations. It could also be as technical as, for instance, we've developed some utilities that help with managing update sets or code promotion capabilities. And we're building that into a technology platform that allows you to leverage, or allows the resources to leverage those capabilities contextually based on the type of project that you're working on, the type of delivery you're providing, and the specific phase that you're in. Make it very accessible, so instead of having to reinvent that wheel every time, is being able to leverage existing capabilities and in some cases code. And it's not only that it's more efficient, but it's also, it brings consistency and quality. So it's not a accelerator, which I think in the ServiceNow world we've all moved away from, but it's really a modular way of supporting delivery teams and implementation teams with that years and years of experience that NetImpact has built over the years. And it also includes things like organizational change management type capabilities. The other big thing, of course, that we, along with just about everybody else in the industry, is looking at is the Gen AI capabilities. And within ServiceNow, I believe it is July that ServiceNow will make that available in the FedRAMP instances of ServiceNow. So we're in the process of looking at how we can leverage some of the generative AI capabilities to support them and how we can expand on those capabilities and build additional use cases. So I think it's an exciting area. I loved when I was at the Federal Forum, one of the CIOs positioned generative AI not as a replacing human beings, but augmenting the capabilities of human beings. And that's really what we're focusing on as well, is how can we get humans to interact with generative AI and make that into a force multiplier that makes them more effective and the agency overall more effective. Continue to build on what we've built so far, but then moving that into some of the next generation technologies that we're so focused on.
Final question from me then, Holger. As the person leading the ServiceNow practice, you're obviously involved in the strategy, the execution, working with customers and the existing team, but you also play a role in the promoting of the opportunity to bring in new talent. You and I were speaking off air about the upcoming growth, which is obviously incredibly exciting. So I want to finish on a message to potential future employees. When you're speaking to people about NetImpact Strategies, what is it that you tell them about the environment, the mission, the culture, the growth opportunity that gets them excited enough to join you guys over some of the other great companies also trying to hire?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that, and I got to speak from my own experience and what attracted me to NetImpact, is just the growth, right? So here's a company that has grown tremendously and has, I think, tremendous opportunities for future growth. And I think it's always great to be in that sort of an environment. Secondly, it is our focus on employees. So we've won a number of awards in terms of being best employers within the Washington, D.C. area. And that's really clear across the board. Everything that NetImpact does is very employee focused. Thirdly is with that growth and that employee focus comes the ability for personal growth. And I've seen that myself where I've been involved in a number of different things that for a much larger company would have been only something I could dream of potentially. To me also, the focus on the federal sector is very attractive. I think it's just something that has a lot of benefits. It has a learning curve to it, but brings also a lot of capabilities with it. And then the other portion of it is also this focus with on personal growth is NetImpact's focus on certifications and helping employees to achieve more. There's always, if you have a great idea, which is also great within NetImpact, it's a fairly flat organization. If you have a great idea, the door is always open. Senior management's always very receptive to adopting some of these ideas, and they're always willing to listen, both to concerns, ideally, of course, to some new opportunities and ideas that can drive the business forward. I think it's a great place to work, and both from a perfect size that in my mind NetImpact is to just the philosophy and the leadership direction that we've taken over the last few years.
Holger, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. Really appreciate you sharing your background, your journey, long time in the ServiceNow space, and being one of the very few people out there who is a certified CSM. And then obviously your in recent years transition to NetImpact Strategies and a great insight into the work you're doing within the public sector space and the tremendous opportunity that exists, not just within the industry, but particularly at NetImpact Strategies. I know you and I from our numerous conversations are very excited about the growth that's possible for NetImpact. So we're excited to see what you guys can accomplish in the coming months and years, and look forward to having you back on the show again in the near future.
That sounds great, and thanks again for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.